begun. Dr. Vargas, thank you for joining us. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for having me tonight, guys. It's kind of late, so hopefully you're enjoying your dinner and kicking back. And this will be kind of hopefully fun, not real teachy or lecture-y, if you will. But a shout out to Midway, because we have two great Midway students. So I know they're doing good stuff over there. I got Morgan Knox, who was in 2000, anyhow, I think last year she graduated. And then Leslie Duplessis is also with us, and they have been amazing. Started out as interns and have stayed on at Spike Coast and Rehab and have just really shown good things for your school. They've been great. So I apologize if, when I went back and I was just now thinking, okay, was I just supposed to talk about rehab or a career? And I literally just sat down and had that thought. But this is, I think, still applicable, and maybe more so because you guys are in a good position to be making decisions right now and your career, about a career and whichever direction that would take. And so, whether or not this is exactly what I was supposed to talk about, you know what? I think it's going to be pretty darn applicable to you guys. So here we go. So we can talk about a career and how I kind of got to where I am. Little spoiler alert, it was not linear, as few things are. So this may be the case for some of you guys that are pre-vet, or whatever your thoughts are for future career, but you think about in school, you have so many check boxes, right? And you're just checking them off the list as you go. And your prerequisites, and the tests you got to take, and the stuff you got to do to get to where you want to be. And then, so that was me all along, right? And then I got into vet school and I check. And then I was a vet. So now what? Right? Everyone would think, oh, you're a veterinarian. You know exactly what you want to do. I mean, I know I wanted to do equine medicine, but even that, like, now what? Where are you going to go? You can go anywhere. So guess what? That's pretty mind-boggling. So anyhow, just get ready for that. Whatever you're doing, and you have that definitive, this is what I want to do. Guess what? When you get there, you may still be like, now what? That's totally okay. That's cool. That's what we all go through. So don't freak out. I was there too. We all were. So then I went, and I did not one, but two, for reasons maybe less about a want, but more, I graduated in 2009, and if you guys are familiar, there was a great recession that had just set in, and there were very few jobs available. So I did an hospital internship, which was amazing, which was really cool. But, when you hear internship, I have down there, it's like AKA no sleep and like very little pay. So yeah, did that for like not 1 year, but then I was looking around in the job market and it's not amazing. And so somehow stuck around for another year of like AKA no sleep and very little pay. When I mean very little pay, I mean like 10 years ago, if you can comprehend $27,500, I mean, I don't know that they pay that much more after, like now, but that's like what we're talking, no pay, okay? So very little pay. Like if you broke that down into the hours that I worked, it's like obscene. We won't even go there. So, woohoo, finally after 2 years of that madness, I found a real job, like grew up. And this was not altogether intuitive. I really enjoyed, sports medicine and people and horses, and I had ridden, not super competitively, not at the levels that I was going to work at, but really did enjoy the horses and athletes. So there was a job and a practice in Florida, in Wellington, Florida. And if you guys know anything about Wellington, Florida, it means you know something about showing, because nobody knows anything about Wellington, Florida otherwise. So Wellington is like a little mecca of really rich and elite sport horse showing, is what it is. But so the coolest thing that happened in that time for me, because I feel like life is in seasons and we have things that we learn in each season of our life. And for me at that point, I really began to get an interest in kind of some alternative medicine, and went and got certified in veterinary acupuncture, which I still love to this day and use a lot, because I got a little tired of, just kind of having to patch these horses back together and, put them back together Humpty Dumpty style into the ring. And it gave me an opportunity to address things a little bit more proactively and a little bit more frequently, checking these horses and addressing them in the front end, which I think Chinese medicine kind of allows us to do. But it was tough. So that's half of my life was in Florida, half of my life is in Lexington, Kentucky, but not really in Lexington because, we got some Detroit clients, and we got some Chicago clients. Oh, and the New York ones every now and then, in New Jersey, maybe I'd need to go there for a couple days, and it was exhausting. But again, a good time in my life to do it. It gave me a good appreciation for what these athletes, what is asked of them. And it's intense. And I think for what I do now, to have that understanding of what they need to do to get to a ring, actually what they do in the ring is not as impressive, not even that as impressive as all of the stuff they have to do, a lot of these to prepare them to get to the ring. So that was really what I learned in that season of my life. Then, wow, I think I mentioned at the end of that last slide, I was burned out. And that's a real thing too. And that is one thing that we're addressing in equine medicine and veterinary medicine as a whole, but very much so in equine medicine. And you are in the epicenter of that. Lexington, Kentucky is burnout central. So it was a very good opportunity for my husband to go to Japan with a job. And so I just decided to go, and then had 2 babies while we were in Japan, which, veterinary medicine is not a good place to be pregnant. So it was a very opportune time. It all worked out very well. I don't know that I would recommend it to just anybody to up and move to a foreign country and do that, but it worked. It worked pretty well. I needed a break. I didn't need to even see a horse for a little bit, and that's okay. I love them. I love them to this day, but I probably love them more, and I have a better appreciation for it because I had that 2 years. That's fine. That's how I went about it. So I returned to the US, and I was refreshed, and I was ready to get back to veterinary medicine. And so I wasn't ready to get back into a big busy practice, but I was ready to get out there again and touch a horse. I legitimately did not touch a horse for 2 years. So I started an integrated sports medicine practice. I went back to Chi Institute in Reddick and got chiro, they call it spinal manipulation. You can't technically call it chiropractic medicine because I was not a human chiropractor, but it's a spinal manipulation therapy that is very similar. And I love that to this day, and really helped kind of that tune in those fine palpations and understanding and anatomy. It was excellent. And then went back and added actually small animal acupuncture, because inevitably go to a barn and they say, oh yeah, can you, look at my dog, he's, needs some needles. And I just went to cats, but that was about it. And then in 2019, ran into Dr. Peters that I'd worked with in the past, and just a really great guy. And he had helped kind of put together this, he's a sport-horse veterinarian, and he had consulted with Lisa Lowry at Spike Coast and put together this incredible facility for rehab, and it just sounded like a mecca. And it kind of is. It's got like amazing machines. Actually, let's see. Really loud. There we go. So that is a horse working on the water treadmill. So we have, 2 water treadmills. We have a cold, salinated, and then we have a warmer, non-salinated aqua tread. Really, really amazing machines, getting these horses back in fitness, without a rider. And we can get a 5%, we can get up to a 10% incline. And amazing to watch these horses work. I mean, and I kind of compare it to like, go to the beach and get like thigh high in water in the beach, in the ocean, and walk uphill, and like, tell me that wasn't like an amazing workout. And what we're understanding more and more, with these horses is same in people, and is their core strength as the abdominal and the top line, really that central, that bridge in the horse is so essential to keeping everything else sound. And we pretty much neglected that, I think, we know they get back sore. Never really used to talk about abdominal muscles in a horse. How do you make them do sit-ups? You don't. How do you make a horse lift weights? Well, you can't. So this is kind of our version of that. And we can do, different water levels for different conditions and different inclinations for different conditions. Really, really great for neurologic horses. We had a lot of really cool cases that come in, and just that water on the legs, and that it's waking up the nerves, it's proprioception, it's connecting the nerves to the brain again, and spatial relation. Where are my legs in space? And when I take the water up here, how do I have to rebalance the whole system to make my motion go forward? It's really, really neat to see that happen with some of these horses. We have an aqua spa, we have a dry treadmill. You can see kind of in the background those nice treatment stalls. Vitafloor is really, really awesome. And the best part is actually not any of the machines. It really is this collaborative effort that, veterinarians send in their horses to us, and we work, with a team, with this the veterinarian that brings in the horse, with their farrier, with this, everybody's coming in with the one goal of this horse to succeed. And to do well, which I really love. And I think that if anything is going to set us up for success, it's really just utilizing all these amazing people in the history of the horse, and those that care most about them. So that is what I do now. But again, wasn't very linear. So I presented this to a group, and they had some amazing questions, and I thought that they were very insightful. And so I just kind of have added these in here, and I kind of went through and discussed them as these questions were submitted to me in advance. And each of them kind of made me think, and I probably surprised that particular group of students with my answers, and I hope I didn't offend anyone, but I do think that I hope, if anything, you just leave this and kind of think a little bit. But okay, when did you decide you wanted to become a veterinarian? Okay, right, we all were like, this is not me, this is my 4-year-old, and she is listening to her little stuffed toys with the stethoscope. Not gonna lie, I set up this picture. It's not like, I just came upon her listening to them, and I was like, oh, perfect. No, I completely set this up for the PowerPoint. But the point being is that I was really young. Okay, it was really, I don't know that I was 4 years old, but I was pretty young when I decided I wanted to become a veterinarian. I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, that would be interesting to, ask 100 different veterinarians, but I don't feel like a lot of them just woke up at one morning and were like, I'm going to be a veterinarian. Kind of feel like accountants and engineers are kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just be an accountant or a veterinarian. That's totally unfair, but that is just, I don't know. That's just what I think could happen. But anyhow, so I was pretty young when I made that decision. So this was kind of an interesting question. And you know, think everybody would think, oh yeah, that's a very fair question. But when I really kind of started to think about it, you know, all right, look at these different pictures, and everybody can see the screen, right? Or you all can see this, because it's not going to make any sense unless you can't actually see my screen that's sharing. You
Yeah,
guys
they
can
can
see
see.
that? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up if you can see my screen. Awesome. Okay, so, all right, what do you see here? What was my favorite part about it being a vet? How many horses do you see in this picture? Like, it's like not that many. There's one, he's back there in the background. So the one on the top is, so in the spring we have Testicle Tuesdays, and it's when we castrate our stallions that, you know, we have young horses who breed warm bloods at Spy-Coast, and so, you know, say there's 30 stallions when they're 2 years old, and probably 99% of those are going to be geldings. So we have Testicle Tuesdays, we take care of business. It's really fun, not for the horses, but we think it's pretty great. And so that's all of us kind of smiling and laughing after the fact. And then on the right, you can see my gals, and actually you guys can see there's Leslie, Morgan on the right, and then with us, and then a Kimmy with us, hanging in the cold spa after a long day at work. You know, the only people that don't get a whole lot of rehab and attention are the people. So at the end of the day, sometimes we'll goof around, but they're all in, and that is like freezing. That's 35 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and hyper salinated, super salinated. So it was like, it's so cold I can barely put my hand in and take it out, and they're standing in it. It was impressive. And then at the bottom, I'll play the video, but it was kind of funny. Our treadmill kept stopping when the horses would stomp, and so we were getting every guy we could, and our intern, there was an intern in there, and they would like jump up and come down and we were trying to recreate the situation. Anyhow, none of these pictures have that much to do with the horse, and I think that was interesting in and of that. My favorite part about being a vet a lot of times is just enjoying these different people and these fun and crazy things we get to do and be a part of. And I thought that was, but okay, that's me. That's one of my favorite parts. And then, and my other favorite part too, is watching, you know, these horses. Because in all fairness, yes, I do love horses as well, and I do want them to succeed. And so this is one of our young horses that was, you know, bred and raised at Spy-Coast, and then she's just crushing it on her jump off here, and to win this, you know, this class and Tryon, and that to me is also what it's all about, is really, you know, we are the stewards of these animals, and, you know, at the end of the day, it's our decision to take them to the ring, and it's also, there are just as good decisions to not take them to the ring and to show, but it's kind of fun to really see them do well. And that's David O'Brien riding her in Tryon and just crushing it. So that's pretty cool. This was an interesting question. What was your experience with the veterinary application, the veterinary school application like, and what made you stand out? And so I thought that was a great question, because it meant that the students recognize that you need something that makes you stand out if you are, you know, going to go to vet school. And I think, you know, you can check off all these things, you know, good grades, okay, check, whatever, good enough. You know, everybody knows the range now for all the schools and what they consider good enough. Okay, decent GRE. And then I was thinking, I was like, I don't even know if you guys have to take the GRE anymore. I'm not really sure what the vet school test is. So that probably dates me, but that's all right. You got to have your small animal, you got to have your large animal experience, you got to have both, and you just do. I think research experience is pretty crucial. It's not essential, but I do think it's helpful. And I did appreciate it. I did some research on parasitology, of all things, in undergrad. And I think that really, was helpful in so many ways, if nothing else, to appreciate the people that do put out good articles and research for us, to be lifelong learners. I mean, we really rely on them putting out credible material. So I think if that was a pretty good thing to do. And then I think you got to do something that's just kind of out there. And I had lived abroad and I was a nanny. I was trying to get good at Spanish, and I kind of feel like they probably looked at that and they were like, that's kind of different. And but probably lent some credibility in the light of all of the other things that I had done, that, take some time out and do something very different. And it probably made me stand out. Another comment, and I didn't have it in here, but I think is worth mentioning, is just because we've had a lot of students that have come through Spy Coast, and maybe I spend, a week or 2 weeks with a student, and then they ask me to write a vet school recommendation. And I'm like, oh, I really only know you from like a week or 2 weeks. If you get that response, just be like, oh, okay, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. Don't have that kind of person write your letter, because guess what? When I respond like that, my letter, it's not that great. I don't, that person doesn't really know you. So the time to work on those relationships is actually now. I mean, you guys think, I don't know what grade you are in, or what, and you all may kind of be all across the board, but I think just think about that. If you need anything that goes into that application, if you waste the time of the people that are looking at it with kind of like fluffy, oh, she's okay, I think she'll make a fine veterinarian kind of thing, like, I think you'll make the people that read the application even more angry that they had to read that. So either make it really good or just leave it out. Don't even go there. It's just, make sure, go ahead and search out those relationships now, so that you can give them credence to create a good letter of recommendation, because that's crucial. That is really crucial. This one was a good question, and it made me realize people know this is an issue now. So they asked, how have you handled things financially as a veterinarian? And these are just some really not fun numbers to look at. But this is about 2016, which is as recent as I could get. But man, including those that had like no debt at all, and still the average was 143K. Whew. It's a pretty decent house here in Kentucky. Those with debt, just taking into consideration those with debt, 167, and then over 20%, at least $200,000 in debt. Okay, so that's okay, right? You can do that if you are a neurosurgeon when you graduate, or if you are an attorney and going to sue neurosurgeons. That's okay. You can make that. So then, we talk about this debt to income ratio. It's not that good in veterinary medicine. And this is, I told you, this is all the doom and gloom, and get a little better here, but just let me get this out there first, is that right now that is 2 to 1. So say you have $200,000 coming out of vet school, and you can find a job, hopefully a good one, for $100,000. That's high. You wouldn't find that right now in equine here in Lexington, Kentucky. But in small animal, they do exist. It's a 2 to 1 ratio. It's just not that great. And so the point being, people are not going into veterinary medicine to become rich very quickly, but you need to make money. So here is my silver lining. I think going through, anyhow, the next line of that, average starting salary, think about that for veterinarians, about 5,000, that's small, large, all of that kind of combined. I thought this was interesting. That's just 5,000 more than undergraduates with math degrees. Interesting. I don't want a math degree, but it's just interesting. And becomes with more than 3, but we have more than 3 times the debt. So, I mean, the silver lining really is that, American Veterinary Medical Association, they've taken note. And when I graduated, when I was in vet school over 10 years ago, they were telling us, man, you're going to go out there, you're going to make all sorts of money. There's all sorts of jobs. Just go do it, kill it. And there wasn't. But at least now there's task forces. There was this 2019 Veterinary Wellbeing Summit. People are very aware of the issues that there are. So there are many efforts to advocate for students and graduates. It's really about connecting the student with the appropriate information, what to do with these loans, how to be wise about them. And I think that this kind of goes for anything that you're going to do, is being wise financially with your decisions, because debt is a real thing. And but it's not the end all be all. Once you have debt, once you have loans, you need to be wise about what you do with those. And so going forward, AVMA's set up these debt initiatives, which I think are really good. But I do believe that whatever career path you're going to, would look for like sort of initiatives by different groups, because there is awareness now, which is good. That is isn't that the first step, awareness? And then you can go from there. And then I thought this one is pretty interesting, right? What is some advice that you would give to future veterinarians? So I'm told we have an intern, which is first year we've taken on a veterinary intern, which has been amazing. But I kind of brought this up to her. I was like, oh, haha, what would you say? And I thought this one was one we kind of came up together, but I think it is very pertinent that it's not enough just to love the animal. And you can make way more money, I promise, and have way more time to spend with your animal, horse, dog, cat, whatever, in a different career. So if you are just purely thinking about veterinary medicine because you love animals, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is my advice to you. Go do something where you make more money and have more time. Because you don't, you can make it. It is the exception right now. Hopefully it will become less of the exception. But right now it probably is, especially if you work in Lexington, Kentucky. But I've found the exception. I do feel like I have. It's bi-coast. And so I do think they're out there. I just think they're more rare. And also, we kind of talked about this one too. I thought it was interesting, but think of veterinary medicine kind of like pediatric medicine. And so if a pediatrician went into that field thinking, oh, I just don't ever want to deal with adults ever. All I want to ever deal with is kids. I'm going to be a pediatrician. And they walk into the exam room and there's 2 parents sitting there, right? And this is the adults, and that is who you're dealing with. And the baby's just like a blob of fat, and you are dealing with the parents. And so the same thing, with the horse, and with the dog, or with the cat. You went into veterinary medicine because you want to just work on the animal, and that's just what you want to do. But then you have the owner sitting there, pelting a million questions at you, and you thought, man, that's not why. So I think that is why that was some other advice that thought I would just throw out there. But also our patients can't really talk to us like some really young pediatric patients. So I think that we are like pediatricians sometimes, a lot of times. I think that's all I had, really. I mean, I want to take questions for you guys and probably steer me back into the lane I was supposed to be with this presentation. But no, I think those are things that I think are good to hear.
All right, so we do have a couple different questions that are in the chat for you. So I'm going to kind of slide back. So a lot of our students that are in here right now are are doing that equine rehab route. So they're not planning on getting the DVM. They just want to do the rehab work. Like the students that you have graduated from us recently. And so one of the questions is, do you have any advice for students who are going this route to get their, to go through the equine therapy program and go into practice? What suggestions do you have for them working with DVMs and owners?
Good question. Yep. No, so I think kind of exactly like Morgan and Leslie, I think if you, ideally you can kind of go and experience a lot of different places. I don't know how much, I know Leslie did work at different, she worked in different divisions at Spy Coast, which I think was really helpful for a holistic perspective, but I really feel like it's nice, internships set up a good opportunity to observe and see a workplace without necessarily a full-on commitment. And so, and you're in a great area, really you are in Lexington with so many different kinds of places. So, you do not have to be a veterinarian to be, to even run a rehab facility. I mean, we have some great places in town that do not have veterinarians on staff, and they have people that come in and out. And so I think it would be kind of interesting for you guys as students to visit, a place like Kesmark or Cahill or these different, or even Windstar, places that offer rehab type of situations, because we have a huge thoroughbred population. Even some of these, like the Secretariat Center and some of these kind of repurposing thoroughbreds, they do a lot of rehab as well, and their programs. And I think, really to kind of get into those sort of places, even if it's during the summer and you have, hey, I got 2 weeks, this gap, search out a spot that you can go, and that you can, dive in for what do you have, 2 weeks? You have a week at a, whatever, but go ahead and start searching those out. And most places have on their website, they may not actually even say they offer an internship, but if you reach out to someone via an email or contact somebody, a lot of those places do have those opportunities. They just don't necessarily advertise them, because guess what? You get advertisement, you get an onslaught of everything. So you might get a very unique perspective or unique internship at some of these places that maybe don't advertise that they have students, but that they would take them on. And I actually, somebody else asked this about rehab specifically, and and this is something maybe I wish I had even done or could do a little more, is you don't even think you just have to do equine, or if you're just doing small animal. I think so much of our research and so much of our thought about rehabilitation comes from people. And so, there's these great sports programs at UK. Midway, I'm sure, has some sports programs as well. And seeing if there's a way, I don't know how, but where there's a will, there's a way to learn more about human rehabilitation. And all of that is what we extrapolate. That's where all of our best studies from, all of our best ideas, a lot of times are coming from the human side. Now, that set aside, regenerative medicine, I will say, I really think that the equine industry kind of led the way, but a lot of other stuff has really come from human medicine. So, if you could go and extrapolate, we had one gal that was a student with us for a little bit that was a human athlete, and we had so many cool discussions about, hot and cold therapy and how they're utilizing those, like for her pre-race versus post-race, and how we could kind of integrate that too, and those thoughts in the horses, I think just kind of opens up some interesting thought processes, because in human medicine, there are so many other people than just MDs that do rehabilitation. And I think, as we found with the horses, that will be the same. There will be physiotherapists and more and more folks that will promote and do this rehabilitation process that are not DVMs. So I think, yeah, if I could go back and do one thing, it would be to go shadow some like NFL physiotherapists and see how they keep those guys together. And then I'll be like, okay, maybe I can keep a horse together. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Another question was, so I wanted to hear a little bit more about the spinal manipulation therapy, and where was that schooling that you were doing? And is it like a certification process?
Yeah, it's a good question, because in every state is a little bit different, but in Kentucky, so we have to call it spinal manipulation because you're not a chiropractor unless you, and this is not just Kentucky. You have to be a chiropractor, and then you can go to a course for veterinary chiropractic, and then you could be a veterinary chiropractor, or an animal chiropractor. But that's why, so I first was veterinarian and then took these kind of courses at the Chi Institute, which is in Reddick, but that one is only open to veterinarians. I think there are others that are not, because spinal manipulation is a bit different than, say, acupuncture, where you do have to be a veterinarian. Then you can go on and do the extra schooling for veterinary acupuncture. And the spinal manipulation is a little bit different. But I think you still do have to be a human chiropractor, and they have their own school of however long. And then you can also work on animals. So it's either for acupuncture, veterinarian, then acupuncture add-on, or if you're going to do chiropractic, human chiropractor, and add on the animal to that. But massage therapy, you do not have to be a veterinarian. All of our, Morgan and Leslie do all of our laser treatments, our ultrasound therapy treatments, our all of these other modalities, they are our physiotherapists. So, and that is what they do.
Awesome. Well, that answers one of the other questions, is do you need to get your DVM to work in a rehab center like Spy Coast? And so obviously, no, you don't. How about, can you talk to us a little bit about the usage of like the anatomy classes specifically in rehabilitation? How important it is to get that base and foundation of understanding like attachments of muscles and anatomy, things like that.
So huge. I hate to say that, but it's really, I don't hate to say that. I think it's fascinating, and it is absolutely essential. You kind of, distal limb stuff, there's only so many tendons, you should know them. You got to know that, learn it. No excuses. And, but even like big muscle groups and attachments and different things, I mean, I'm still like, we kind of have our own little rounds every now and then, and kidding around. And you guys have good anatomy, because I know that because of Leslie and Morgan. But it's like, all right, whoever can name the 4 muscles of the quadriceps and the horse, gets whatever, I don't know, candy out of our candy jar. But it was good, and it just gets everybody thinking, and even myself. And I was like, oh dear, it's been a little while since that one. So I mean, even if I have to go back and look it up, it's not a big deal, but it is very important. Obviously in the distal limb, but as we learn more and more, and I was kind of talking about that a little before with this core strength that we're talking about in human medicine, but now really in the equine medicine as well. And it's important stuff. You got to know those little you got to go, what are your postural muscles? You got to know these things that make a difference to our athletes. It's important. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I had someone else that was wanting to know a little bit more about the age of the horses that you treat. Are they just young horses out there at Spy Coast? Do you have a wide range? And what what are the different things that you all do on the rehab side to prepare these athletes and then continue to keep them healthy later?
Good question about the age. And as soon as our intern has enough time to sit down and do this I got her like a little study we got to get together. So now we've had like a year of good data, kind of, horses running through our rehab program, and that the rehab program kind of being the 32 stalls that we have in the rehabilitation and fitness center. And then we kind of have this other thing going on that's all the young horse program that's, bred at Spy Coast and then goes up through the training. And so, in our rehab rolling through there, I would say the average is going to be probably between 5, because that's at what point they've been trained, gotten under tack enough to break, 5 to 15. But again, I'll have better. That's a wide range. I realize that, but that's where I'm going to go with that. It is. It's literally, I could walk you through our barn right now, and we got 5-year-olds all the way up. I will say the younger ones are probably more on neurologic horses, or horses that post-op, a couple of young basket surgeries that were pretty young. But the majority of them are, 8, 9 and above. Probably after 15 or 16, folks are kind of like saying, you put in your dues, you can go to pasture a happy horse. But then, to keep these guys going, there's probably 40 to 50 that are actively in training that are from bred at Spy Coast and in our young horse development center. And, I rely on the guys there and the gals there that are training them to let me know when there are issues. But we, they just, horses are resilient. They're not totally, I will say, not as many as you would think end up in our rehab from the young horse side. So that's good. Yeah.
I have a question back about vet school. And when do you choose your specialty, if you do choose a specialty in vet school, or does that happen after when you're doing your internships?
Good. Yeah, good question. It happens, in some vet schools you track. I went to Georgia, and so I did have to get in kind of an equine track, which was pretty easy for me. I knew early on that I wanted to do that. Not I would say the majority of schools don't track anymore because your boards are over everything. So then you graduate and you go into an internship program, and probably like the first couple months within that, because it's only a year long, then you have to decide if you're going to specialize. So it's pretty fast after that. You kind of have to make a decision. I saw this one, there was a question about getting your farrier's license and a DVM. So cool. That would be awesome. And you should go check out, Hagrid's too has a Baroon Riddle has a really great podiatry department, and a lot of great guys there that have both a farrier's license and a DVM, as well as when I was an intern, a gal, Charlotte from Germany. She was amazing. That was a farrier and a veterinarian. An awesome combo for rehabilitation, because how many things start at the feet and then go and radiate up the leg. And if you can manage good balance and good farriery work, then man, yeah, it's an awesome combo. Awesome. Farriers are essential. Yeah. So.
Is there any particular rehab techniques or devices you see benefit horses in a particular discipline? Do you see any correlation there?
Do you want to know which ones are marketed really well to certain disciplines, or you want to know which ones actually work in certain disciplines? I think marketing.
Tell us behind the scenes. What is the most effective?
I wish I knew that. I would be so rich. Then I would just invest in them. All of this is so nascent. And so even as we use, I'll use the class 4 laser on something, and then I'll go back and I'll say, nah, maybe I'm gonna use echo ultrasound. No, maybe we're gonna go back to the RLT. No, maybe now we're gonna go to the class 3 laser. It is such not a, there is no algorithm right now. That's really hard for some people to digest, but I kind of love, but you know, I don't have a good answer to that. But I think that we're learning better. But I don't think there's an answer to that right now. If somebody says they had an answer, then they're selling that product. So
sounds about right. Sounds about right. Can you tell us more about the Chi Institute?
Yeah, I loved it. It was it's a nice, so there are different programs around the country, and some are a little more kind of from a medical, kind of traditional. Some are more Western, some are more Eastern, and Chi, I think, is a good mix, but maybe a little more, because the founder is Chinese. And he's actually also faculty at University of Florida, and they have a lot of collaborative stuff, which I think is good to kind of have a university and academic setting that he also kind of juggles back and forth. But really, really amazing. Like when I think of my reinforcement with anatomy, it really circles back to acupuncture and the spinal manipulation programs, just because finding all of these points and all of these fine palpations, you really have to go back to the basics and anatomy and find that stuff, and it all kind of works together really, really nice. So my initial exam of a horse is not just a straightforward just kind of palpation exercise. It's taking trigger points that I would have learned kind of at Chi, with acupuncture, and then also some kind of fine motor manipulations and joint mobility from the spinal manipulation, and kind of putting all that together. And it's I just feel like it's more holistic. But
that sounds awesome. Did you see, or have you heard of many people getting credentials for rehab-based veterinary medicine while you're in vet school? Or are you seeing anybody coming out with that?
Interesting. There will be more as this grows, because they're just pretty recent 2, 5, 6, 7 year 5 or 6 years has been this after vets, like a specialty that is an equine sports medicine and rehabilitation specialty, boarded certificate. And so it's a whole very long process that you would go through, which I am not. But I think stemming from that, I would imagine will be more kind of credentialed programs. So there is University of Tennessee has and I don't know, and these you'd have to go and look, which ones are DVM, which ones are vet tech or like therapist based. But I think the University of Tennessee one has several different, I know they do for veterinarians, but rehabilitation kind of programs. Chi Institute did as well. I also think that one was just for vets, but look for them, because they're going to start coming more and more. This is where we recognize as a profession that we failed a little bit, and that we diagnosed a horse, we treated it, and we kicked it out the door, and we said, off you go. And then what, and a lot of times they just circle back and they broke and they came back, or they never got fixed and nobody ever followed up. So this is our chance as a profession to follow those out and to do right by the horse, maybe even to prophylactically make these horses stronger, by being able to recommend better programs, things, but in general to be able to follow these out and to do better by the horse. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. How would you recommend branching out to clients with different breeds of horses or disciplines that you're not really familiar with? So you owned your own business for a little bit. How'd you go about doing that and finding clients, building your business?
That's a really good, it is a really good question, because that is the hardest part, for sure. I felt very trained in everything else I could have, but and that is tougher for sure. Some of that is networking, so you meet different people in the horse industry and trying to connect. So I'd met a tech at Root and Riddle, and he now was in a racehorse, a large racehorse entity, and connecting again with him to see if we could get in and check in with some of those horses. It was just going to some small animal clinics that I'd never stepped foot in before and leaving a card. It was that one, I will say, for myself was the hardest part, especially when you say like branching out to something you're not familiar with. Is going to be tough. So either you're going to their shows, you probably have to familiarize yourself with their discipline first, because you know how this industry is, right? They don't allow just anybody to come in. You kind of have to come in from the inn, which is really hard. So don't know that I had a great answer for that, but I empathize. It's a tough one. And just be creative with getting yourself out there. Good question.
Yeah, they're asking some really good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right?
These are one of those moments that I'm like, I'm so proud. So tell us a little bit about getting involved with local research in your undergrad. Any suggestions you have for getting involved in research in our area now, and how that early experience has benefited you besides helping your application, how has it helped you?
Yeah, no, and it's like I said before, if nothing else, the appreciation for what it takes to do that. But I remember when I was trying to find some opportunities, and this actually, I think I was even an intern, and I just went to Gluck and like either emailed one of the lab assistants there and got a meeting. It didn't go anywhere. I didn't end up getting the position, but the point being is that you just have to, we have the internet. You have so many ways to access these people and contacts, and there are always people looking for lab rats. There are always people looking for somebody to do, like when I was in the parasitology lab and just fecal egg counts at like 100 a day, just things that you would be like, this is just not going to be fun. And it may not be fun at the moment, but being a part of research to some extent is pretty, it is really good. And I think, especially if you're not maybe interested in veterinary medicine, that's another route that I would encourage you to look into further, because it is, there's a lot of opportunity in that. So we have UK, we have a large research institute, and I'm sure even at Midway that there would be opportunities. You need to reach out to professors and to really, you just have to send the emails, honestly. And you're going to send a lot of emails and you're going to get a lot of non-responses, but then you're going to get back a response, and it's going to be like, hey, yeah, sure, we could use some extra help to, do this, and maybe it's just walking some lab dogs or something, but then guess what, that leads to something else that leads to something else. So it's a lot of times just asking, which yeah, and a lot of asking. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely second that. And also for you all that are thinking about, oh, who can I email? Ask those of us who are already here working with you all. So like me over in the career office or your faculty, we can help you craft emails that are more likely to get responses. So I would definitely encourage you reaching out and use your time wisely to help you get to that yes faster. Another question. Oh, yes. And also Dr. Holland was reminding everybody that all of our equine students are required to conduct a research project during their senior year. So there's usually opportunities for undergraduates below the senior level to help with that. So that's a great way for you to start getting research students while you're younger and trying to plan out what you're going to do your senior year. I've got another question. With so many horses getting tendon and suspensory injuries and other common injuries like that, how much do you think the DVM plays with it versus the rehab?
Yeah, I think, so your question being, how much do you think the DVM plays versus the rehab? Yeah, I think the funny thing is probably the job that I do now, I've injected a fraction of the horses, or a fraction of the amount that I did when I was in practice before. I do think once they get into a good rehab program, and once you have them working at an appropriate level, the right way, that yeah, you really put me out of the job a little bit. I think, maybe one of the nice things, for me is being able to see these horses regularly. So if I see them going in a bad direction, can, pull back the reins, the proverbial reins, and go in a different direction. So that's, maybe more of what I offer at this point, than, injecting another suspensory with Prostride. There's a time and a place for that too. And, another horse I've got right now that was just like so long, this left hind medial suspensory branch, that's just months and months and months. And finally we just were like, all right, we're going to put something regenerative in there. And he's starting to turn around. And so it just wasn't enough just to leave it alone. It really wasn't going to heal. And it still may not, but at least we're headed in a better direction than, doing nothing. So I think there's a time and a place for everything. But yeah, I think that with appropriate rehab, you're gonna need, less injections for sure. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. For someone who didn't necessarily grow up around horses or grow up in the industry, what suggestions do you have? Like, what should they start doing like right now to help make sure that they're going to be able to launch successfully?
Mm-hmm. Just get in it now. We had the coolest intern this summer, and she did not really grow up around horses very much, but she dove in, and she was at 3 different practices in Texas over the summer to kind of prepare herself, and then came to us in August, and she just, like, she was in it to win it. And just it's not too late for sure, but you just got to start. So you can start somewhere, and that, maybe just getting a job mucking stalls at a barn. Every barn in town needs somebody to muck stalls. And you could go make $10 an hour mucking stalls somewhere and you'll get some experience just being around the horses. But it's kind of like cats. I'm not around cats a lot, so I don't really know them. I can't really read them very well, so I'm not going to probably ever practice on a cat ever. So horses, I was around a lot. I just was around them, and you can read them when you're around them. So just put yourself around them. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the Young Horse program at Spy Coast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got some jobs there if anybody needs some work. If anybody needs some time in a stall, mucking stalls. No, it's grown exponentially because every year our other veterinarian, even though I get onto her, just keeps breeding more horses. It's an amazing program. And I think the cool thing and the whole genesis of it was, the really warm bloods weren't bred as much in America and the US, and everybody went over to Europe to do that. And so, bringing that to the United States is really, and watching those horses now that the breeding program is 7, 8, 9 years old, and watching some of those horses, like in the video there of LaBelle, compete and do really well. And I think that is a great program. It is a tough one, and because it's everything from on the ground and breaking and training and desensitization, and all the way up to showing. So we have kind of 3 different barns. One, Kieran's barn, breaking, so that's just getting the horses in the barn, 2 years old, get them in long lines, desensitization with Alfredo. And then there's kind of 2 different paths. More than likely they go through kind of to our next barn, and this is Adrian. He's kind of sorting through the horses, which ones are going to be hunter or eventer, kind of more, not going to make it in the upper levels, so we're going to kind of shed some there. But then you're taking the cream off the top each time, and hopefully they make it into David's barn and they're going to go to the shows and make a little bit. We need to, promote the Spy Coast name, promote the Spy Coast horse, and then have them sell and do well in other people's barns. So I like that because it's all very transparent, and the goal there is to produce a good horse that would go on and do good by lots of different people.
Thank you. With tendon injuries or kissing spine, are the horse's prognosis much better with the rehab rather than just sold stall rest or turnout?
Oh, hands down. Kissing spine, yeah, both of them. Yeah, hands down, totally. We don't do like we used to. You will, and hopefully you don't hear, there's a few things, but hopefully you don't hear, put this horse in a stall for, a month and then come back and recheck it. Like, that's just archaic for most everything. There's going to be there's fractures, there's plenty of things that may be the case for, but really tendon ligament injuries, and then this and kissing spine, that one is a really interesting one. Again, we're talking more, learning about the core, and then if you're talking about, dorsal spinous processes that are kissing, and if you can make that back stronger and make them work in a good frame and get that back stronger, then rehab, it's all about we use these balance pads. We do different exercises and physiotherapy while they're on these balance pads, kind of like horse yoga. So we have, lifting weights when they're in the water. We have horse yoga on our balance pads and doing their exercises. And then we have the TheraPlate that's kind of these like mild, it's vibratory, but it's constantly destabilizing them and making them engage the core. And those postural muscles, multifidus muscles, we're hopefully making those stronger and stronger, and making that core stability really a part of our rehab, and maybe thinking a little bit less about the legs and a little bit more about this huge, massive hunk of the horse that for so long we kind of really didn't really think about. So.
That's awesome. Somebody's been like, ooh, horse yoga, that's exciting.
Wow.
Have you heard of using weighted blankets in rehab as a rehab therapy tool on horses? Because of the deep pressure in like humans and dogs. Have you seen anybody trying to see like, oh, this is really great and effective in the human world, let's see what's going here? You said that that's kind of common in other experiences.
Yeah, totally. And in kids and all, like I have heard of that quite a bit. And I think, probably one of the reasons in horses it's difficult because if you can imagine how heavy that blanket would be, and Morgan and Leslie would kill me if I gave them a weighted blanket to put on the horse. But certainly their blankets, the microcirculatory ones like the Beamer and then the MagnaWave, there's a lot of different blanket therapies out there for horses. And, some of that weighted is kind of, is pressure too, and so we kinesiotape, or warm therapy. I think we always think about cold therapy, but there's also heat and warmth that we also want to use, so that's some of that weighted blanket concept. But the actual just weighted blanket I haven't heard of for the horses, so whoever wants to come up with that, but I do think it would be a beast. That would be tough.
Yeah, because I think you're supposed to make sure that it's like around 10% of body weight.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I think your interns would be very frustrated.
Wouldn't like me very much for that one. No. I mean, they carry around a weighted blanket all day long with this person, bouncing up and down on their back. But no, that's an interesting comment.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any studies that come out soon about it, and we'll all know that it was happening at Midway first.
Yeah.
What kind of suggestion, are there any rehab techniques, devices, or regimen that you see being used with fracture repair, or you recommend with fracture repair?
Mm-hmm. So we've had a few proximal P1 fractures, kind of maybe more cyst-like structures, but that they have put screws in. I haven't had any actual fracture cases because so many of those, are unfortunately terminal in the horse. So, the only ones I could liken to it a little bit would be some of our basket surgeries in the neck, because they're taking out so much bone and putting in an implant, or in the case like I've had 2 proximal P1 fractures, and so one modality we use, and I don't know entirely, it's just not a lot of our modalities get through bone. Ultrasound is not going to get through bone, laser's not going to get through bone. One that we think gets through bone because it was initially put out for people is your pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, or PEM therapy, because in people it was a non-union stress fractures is where they initially kind of talked about that therapy in people, and healing those back, and with some success using the PEM. But I would say that one, if I could talk about anyone that has some indication for fracture, it would be probably the PEM, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Would you recommend doing a vet nurse internship to help with the rehab route if they're not going the DVM route?
Yeah, so like technician, kind of veterinary technician sort of thing. Yep, totally, for sure. I will say, so I had a veterinary technician, and that was really nice because for a while that person, could do a lot of basic things, especially in Kentucky. It's kind of state by state what you're allowed to do. But as long as it's under veterinary supervision, I had him floating teeth and obviously all, IV injections, vaccines, and that sort. But it's a bit looser in Kentucky in general. You don't have to be a veterinary technician for a lot of these things. And so, it honestly may depend on what state. And you should look at some of the legislation per state, like New York. You can do nothing basically unless you're a veterinary technician. So if you're going back to New York, I would highly recommend, and probably California as well, I'm not sure, but New York, we had some Morrisville students and from SUNY that's up there, another rehab program, and they just talked about how little they could do without being a veterinary technician. So, and in Kentucky, I think the verdict's kind of out if you have to. I think you got to get the experience, but whether or not you need to go through the course or not, it may be the jury is kind of out on that. You just need to get that experience. But
Awesome. I think we're caught up on all the questions. Oh, another one just came through. Are there types of rehab therapies made for field work you couldn't, when you can't move the horse to the facility? Is there anything specifically?
Oh yeah, totally. No, most are. The exceptions being our, water treadmill and the spa can be tough. But the the PEMF, the laser, both lasers now, actually the class 4, the regenerative laser that we have now used to be too big to move around, or people would have these massive vans to move them around, but now it's kind of it's really heavy, but it's still a 50-pound, laptop basically, that is the regenerative laser, and the echo ultrasound, all that's very mobile now. I take it to the horse park, take it to other farms, have to constantly take it back and forth from our young horse division to the rehab. So yeah, all of the therapies pretty much are mobile. So easy to use and to move around. So.
Parenting, working.
I know, right?
Fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
When you said earlier that you had a 4-year-old, I was like, oh, that's fun.
Oh yeah.
This is my 2-year-old.
Here.
Are you gonna say hi? Are you just gonna eat your hand?
Yeah. It's so cute.
Yeah, so cute. But I do think that we are caught up now. So thank you all, students, for asking such amazing questions. I did get one that just came through. Are most modality dosages still recommended by manufacturers? Are there other sources?
For the modalities?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a little bit, a lot of those we do source from from the manufacturer, but as we play around with those a little more, and there is some research, again, why we need more and more, that there are some recommendations that are maybe a little bit more appropriate for the horse, because a lot of that's extrapolated from human side. But yeah, I'll send, I'll try to send to you, Mackenzie, our link and info about, the internship program at Spy Coast too. And, yeah, it's really important just to get out there and to check out what's available. The nice thing is you guys are in the best place, for this kind of stuff here in Kentucky. This is where it's at, right, dude?
Where it's at, right, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you for putting together that presentation for us and answering all of our many questions. We greatly appreciate it. And we would love to get that information about the internships and just stay connected. The quality of our program, and we hope that we can get more of our wonderful students out there with you all. So thank you so much. Thank you, students, for jumping in. If you are here and you did not type your name into the chat already, please be sure you do that for attendance purposes. Everybody have a great night.